All right, everybody, welcome to another season of Fantasy Baseball. We have a ton to go over, so I'm going to go ahead and get into it right now. It's year 20. Welcome to the 20th year. It's kind of crazy. We're entering our second decade. With that being said, last year we heard a lot from people regarding just some things they wanted to get changed, a lot of things that we've talked about in terms of dynasty and reset and extension of keepers. The playoffs kind of came to a head last year. No, we're not resetting the league. No, we're not moving to Dynasty. But we have a couple of things that we want to add this year, some major additions that really just coincide with the fact that it is year 20. We should see some change, but also making sure that everybody is kind of getting a little bit more of the feel that they want. Trust, I'm a big Dynasty proponent, but I understand that a lot of guys in the league aren't. We don't want to go to a point where we're alienating folks. So I've come up with a few things along with the other commissioners that kind of give us a little bit more of the dynasty feel, but also keeps us as far away from a dynasty as possible, if that makes sense. So, with that being said, the first order of business, the biggest order of business is that we lost Dalton this offseason. He decided to step away from the league for whatever reason. It's his personal choice. We'll wish him all the best. But with that being said, it's been a while since we had to look for a replacement. Dalton was one of the more active people in our league, active in the chat, so he's gonna have some big shoes to fill. So we have a couple of replacements that we have in mind right now. We're still going over them. We really want to get them in the league as soon as possible. That way they can kind of acclimate to the league, also go through an entire offseason with us, so they kind of know what to expect going forward. Knowing that really once this fires up in February, it really doesn't stop until about September, October. So we really want a committed guy, somebody's going to communicate. So we'll keep you guys updated there. Any suggestions from you guys, let us know. Like I said, we've kind of narrowed it down to two, and we'll keep you guys updated there. Okay, first big change. We've talked about NA keepers a lot in the past. I've come up with an NA keeper draft and a real fun way of doing this. Again, this is kind of gear us towards maybe a little bit more of a dynasty feel, but also 3 and 8 keepers is not keeping a team full of 27. There's a lot of benefits to this that I'm going to go over here. It's something that we're really excited about. We definitely want to vote on this, but I believe if you take some time to think about this and hear me out here, that you're going to really enjoy this. So the way that the NA draft will go is that we'll hold a 3-round NA draft right before the start of our normal draft. So the night of our draft, we'll do the NA draft, which should take 10 to 15 minutes. We will roll directly into our main draft from there. So once the draft concludes, all the players from the NA draft, so all rookie eligible players, we'll go and filter back into our main draft pool. So it's not like these guys aren't going to be draftable. The main top 36 essentially should be drafted in this NA draft. Now, from there in season, so the way this is going to work is you have the option to keep 0 to 3 NA keepers. This is just like our football league for those who are in it. You don't have to keep 3. You can keep 1. You can keep 2. You can keep 3. Whatever you want to do there. So, and the way that the keepers will work is your first keeper will act as your round 1 keeper, your second your round 2, your third keeper your round 3. So say if you decide to keep your round 1 and your round 3 keeper, then when you go into that draft, those guys will be slotted in there, and then your second round pick will be open to you to add whoever you want. Who qualifies? So what we're going to do is to make this easier, instead of having all minor eligible players in your NA slot, you have guys that maybe got called down last year at the end of the year. I know there's a guy in there who was actually a keeper last year, and now he's in NA draft. We will make it so we will follow the MLB rules for rookies. So if a player exceeds 150 innings pitched it's 150 at-bats or 50 innings pitched, he no longer qualifies as an NA keeper. He'll have to go into your main keeper slot if you want to keep them. So, and the people in the draft pool, I don't know if there's a way to filter that out. So it's on you to make sure that you look, hey, has this guy been in the league before? If he has, did he exceed a certain amount, or certain limits? Essentially, this draft is really going to be tailored around rookies, people in single A, maybe guys who were drafted this year, in double A, triple A, even foreign players that haven't made their way over to the league. These guys will be available for you. In season. So the cool thing about this is that we're not going to allow for draft pick trades. NA draft pick trades. You're set for your round 1, 2, and 3. You can trade your NA players for guys who are looking to maybe bolster their team for a run this year. You can use your first, second, third round pick, understanding that if you get rid of those players, you have those rounds open to you in the draft. Okay. It adds an extra layer, an extra wrinkle, as you say, for trading. So instead of having to trade draft picks, you can quite possibly trade maybe your number 1 overall prospect that you have in your NA slot. The cool thing about these NA keepers too is they don't expire. So if you pick up a rookie who's 18 years old and you hold him for a couple of years and he finally makes the call up, that's great. That's what you're really looking to do, is kind of build yourself a little bit of a miniature farm system, and you can treat that farm system any way that you want to. But again, understanding and knowing that once that player is called up to the league and he exceeds his rookie minimums, if you want to keep him again, he's going to have to be a main keeper from there. So the regular season standings will determine the draft order. So we won't use the consolation round to determine this. So if you finish 12th in the regular season, understand that you're going to have the first overall pick in the rookie draft. This is a linear draft, non-snake. So act and operate just like the NFL draft, the NBA draft, and the college draft. Again, this is allowing teams that maybe are finishing at the bottom for a couple of years or really trying hard to build keepers. This gives them an opportunity to get better, faster, also build for the future. This coincides with draft pick trades too. If you have maybe rookies that you know they're going to pop in a couple of years, maybe you start bolstering that draft a couple of years down the road. So when you go into that season with your 5 main keepers, 3 guys that you know are going to be called up that year, maybe you have also a couple of extra draft picks in there so you can really make a run from there, okay? What else do I have on this? That's essentially it. So there's a lot of things that we need to work out here still, but this is something that we're going to implement hopefully into the 2026 season. Now, of course, if we want to get it going for 2025, we still have 2 months ahead of us to get ready to go from there. This is kind of a big implementation, so I don't want to rush this, but understanding that we have already started working through the kinks, we have a tester league that we're working on this with. This is going to add just an added dimension to our league. That's going to kind of, again, give us somewhat of a dynasty fix. So for those looking for a taste of dynasty, they have it there. For those who don't want to go the dynasty route, understandable. This still keeps us as far away from a dynasty as possible. And for those teams that really want to dive into or like diving into minor league players, the rookie draft, this is your bread and butter right here. Versus guys who don't like to dive into those. I'm one of those. You can essentially use your NA keepers as trade bait. And yeah, so it's something that I think is going to curb a lot of the want to move to a dynasty from some of us. And a really cool thing. It's very rare that I bring an opportunity or an option to the other 2 commissioners where they look at me loving it. And we worked through it and talked about it for about 45 minutes to an hour that night. It was a main topic of discussion. We talked about a lot of things. The second thing that we talked about is another big move by this league. It has been, I think, 14 years since we expanded keepers. We went from 4 to 5. Now, over the last few years, we've heard guys joking say, man, I wish I could keep 6 or keep 7 this year. Last year, we heard more people wanting an additional keeper. It will dumb down the draft picks a little bit more to understanding that now our round 1 will start in round 7. Which, by the way, we're hoping to correct to make it so round 1 is actually round 1 and then your keepers are set in the back end of the draft. I'll have to get with Mike to see if we can make that happen, but we want to do that. But we will move. It's essentially moving to 6 keepers. I gave the option to move to 7, 8, and 9, but with hopefully the implementation of this NA draft, adding an additional 5 or 6 keepers to your team, including NA players, it seems like a whole lot. So moving to 6 with the option of moving to 7 maybe down the line is there, but voting to move to 6 now, and it won't be for this season too, it'll be for 2026, I think is almost a must at this point. We've been doing this long enough now, the rosters are big enough now to where a 6 keeper will be beneficial to a majority of the league. And it also gives guys maybe the opportunity to take a shot on a 6 keeper Maybe you have one of your NA guys. They got called up. They exceeded. They had like 155 at bat. You're not sure if they're a main keeper yet, but you don't want to let go of them. Make them your sixth keeper. Or if you're just a loaded team from the year before and you depleted with draft picks, you understand that you have a 6-batter pitcher in there that's a difference maker that may be able to offset the fact that you don't have as many draft picks because maybe you bought too much the year before. So easy enough, 6th keeper. We're going to vote on that one too. Another thing that was brought up last year, pardon me, hold on. The 8-man playoff experiment is kind of, I think, is becoming more of an annoyance. It's shortened our season. The playoffs are really long. There's 2 weeks of guys not playing. I'm hearing rumbles of wanting to go back to a 6-man. I personally prefer the 6-man. I know the commissioners do as well. I think the 8-man was fun while it lasted, but I think it caused more problems than good. It shortened our regular season too as well. It made it so we had playoff teams selling when they should have been buying or staying put because they felt like a 7th and 8th seed really didn't belong in the playoffs. And truthfully, they don't. I think half the league making the playoffs and the other half the league in the constellation is perfect. We'll go back to a 6-man playoff format. The top 2 seeds receive a bye. We'll also go back to paying out the first place guy over the regular season. He'll get his buy-in back. So the way the consolation will work now is we've tossed around a couple of ideas. We'll probably keep it pretty standard this year, but we tossed around the ideas of making the 6-man a roto style format for those 3 weeks. So basically it's like a points league at that point. Or you can even have it so number one, everybody's playing each other. There's an option in Fantrax to where like you can play multiple teams throughout the week. So at the end of 3 weeks, whoever has the most wins over the bottom 6 teams will end up taking, the number 1 overall pick. We floated an idea of if you win the consolation, you also get an additional first round pick. So the 13th overall pick in the draft. This is something that a dynasty league that Much is in for football does. I really like that idea. This has not been set in stone though. So if we go to a 6-man playoff, understand the constellation is going to change. The constellation still remains, hey, if you win the constellation, you still get the number 1 overall pick. But yeah, so 6-man playoff, moving back to an old constellation with the options of doing something unique with our constellation. We will discuss more about that. Those are kind of the real big ones, guys, that we wanted to go over there with you. Now, these next few aren't as big, but it's something that I know this is going to help a lot of guys. It'll alleviate a lot of the frustrations that come with off season, especially when teams in Major League Baseball have a guy who went under the knife for Tommy John last month, and they don't announce him on the IL until the beginning of the season. Much came to us with this idea. I love it. If a keeper or a drafted player is for sure going to be put on the IL to start the year, you can communicate in the newly formed injury channel that, hey, Spencer Strider is going to be on the shelf for the first 3 months of the season. We'll hear that. We'll review the player to make sure everything's legit. We'll throw them in an IL spot for you. Understanding that when the season starts, so we'll go back to our 3 IL spots. But that way it opens up your roster to add and drop players. So that way you're not having to worry about maybe dropping a keeper or a draft pick. And it just makes it easier for everybody. So I know I've had guys in the past that, like Ronald Acuna this year is a prime example. He's not going to start the season with the Braves. He's probably going to be on the IL for the first month. Well, that sucks. I got to keep him in my lineup. And with our lineups only being 27 men deep, there's a lot of adding and additions during spring training. It's just a wasted roster spot. So this is a quality of life thing for everybody. We'll vote on it. I don't know if we're going to vote on this one or not. If we have complete pushback from a few folks, we can vote on this one. But really, I think that this is something that we can implement pretty easily. It'll make everybody really happy. So some things I want to bring up, we bring up every year, conflict resolution. Let's make sure that we're not being assholes to one another. I know we're competitive, but we're all friends. We're all family here. I don't ever want to drive somebody from the league because there's differences that can't be resolved. Let's make sure that we're just talking to one another, communicating with one another. If you don't like a guy, that's understandable. Just stay away from him. Let's try to keep this harmonious. I know that that's one of the big reasons why we've lasted as long as we have. I fully see us going another 20 years. So be cool to one another. Don't be a dick. please make sure you're communicating. I know a lot of you guys don't communicate via Discord well. You have the notifications off. It's up on your computer, so you don't see the notifications on your phone. You don't see the DMs come through. Hey, I'm guilty of it too. I've had DMs that were sitting there that I just didn't see for months on end this off season. I'm going to put out a spreadsheet real quick of everybody's cell phone numbers. I'm a texter. I mean, I communicate via text a lot better than I do any of my messenger services, whether that be in Teams, whether that be Slack, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, whatever it may be. So just make sure that you're talking to folks, and if you're busy, letting them know, hey, listen, I'll get to this a little bit later. And don't be afraid if somebody says that they're going to get to it later and they get busy. I think half the league has kids now, full careers. It's madness over at my house right now. So shoot them a quick reminder. Hey, man, just making sure you saw that trade. Especially when you make a trade and that 24-hour period is happening. We just got to make sure that we're communicating. I know that was a big frustration from some. It drives me nuts. I'm tired of talking about it. Let's make sure that we're communicating. Lastly, two more things actually. President's Cup ends this year. So make sure that you have your 150, Venmo it over to me. It's not due anytime. Just make sure that it's due before the end of the season. Send it to me anytime you can. Next President's Cup, I've already started working on. We'll have a lot more ways of gaining points, losing points. We'll really make it a more in-depth thing. So we're like, if you get a win in the season, that counts as a point versus a loss minus a point. Overall season standings, maybe, if you win consolation, you get a certain amount of points. We'll do a lot more with it because I know it's pretty basic this time around. But as crazy as it sounds, is when we announced it 2 years ago, it really felt like 3 years was a long way away. Well, it's here now. So I'll have final President's Cup standings leading into this year out to you guys as well as keepers and everything else that comes with our league. The draft is set for March 14th, Pi Day. It's a Friday. It will be in Dallas this year. If you can make it out from California, I know Andrew's expressed interest. I'm sure he's talking to Much & Co. Casey, of course, Ryan, I've already talked to him about it. It's a pretty busy year for him. The more the merrier. I know that Mike has opened up his house to everybody to come down there. The last time we did this, it was a ton of fun. I know me and my family, Devin, I'm sure Levi, my brother will probably go out just to have fun. We'll do another draft weekend there. If the turnout's not what we expect or we just don't do it, we'll maybe shift draft to Saturday night. We're thinking a Friday night draft is easier because that way when people get in, maybe Thursday or Friday morning, we get the draft out of the way. We can enjoy ourselves at Saturday. There's no time limits or constrictions. Yes, it's a little selfish for the people that are in person at the draft party, but that's just how it is. I can't think of anything else that I have for you guys. Nothing else is written down here. 20 years. Amazing. I love the fact that we made it this far. That I expected, not really, but the fact that we're here, we're thriving, the league is growing, is really awesome. And as I get rid of fantasy sports, football, basketball, and such, I look more and more forward towards our baseball season each year. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely let us know. Polls will be coming out very soon. Let's get this stuff voted on so we can get it implemented. Send me your keepers, preliminary keepers, if you want to, via DM. I'll get to work on that keeper sheet. Anything else that I can come up with, I'll send over to you guys. Until then, peace.